Oh, here we go. A Western story starring Leonardo DiCaprio, DeNiro, and directed by eyebrow Scorcese. Count me in. You don't have to ask me twice, or even once. I'm already in, with consent. Obviously. Scorsese took a look at all the criticisms of his previous film, The Irishman, and made another 3.5 hour long movie, which is just as long as my poop time after 2 shots of espresso. Can an 80-year-old legend director keep up with increasing technology, keep you engaged in a grounded story when attention spans are at a maximum of 10 seconds, and have his creative juices oozing out of all of his orifices like a modern-day OnlyFans model? You bet your manscaped ass he can. For a dude who's at the age of enunciating the S with a whistle,
You like popsicles?
he's one of the few directors that still makes film a work of art. A lot of modern directors, for some reason, forget that performances is what makes your movie. It's not about how you hold the camera or where you point the light and the amount of explosives you have in a scene. It's the acting that drives a story, especially in a grounded true story like this one. The movie starts off with Scorsese basically thanking everyone to come see his movie. And I've been liking this trend of film creators opening their films up thanking everyone. It shows that they're aware that films are at the brink of death, especially films like this one. And Hollywood for the last few years have been demonizing and alienating fans. So I like to see this become a thing, and it also helps people watching these movies finally see the faces of the creators instead of only seeing the actors. So, Killers of the Flower Moon is a tragic true story about the Osage people in Oklahoma who were murdered for their wealth which they got by discovering oil in their land. Leonardo DiCaprio, that plays Ernest Burkhart, returns from World War I to his uncle William Hale, played by DeNiro, whose home is on the reservation. The family comes up with a plot to inherit the wealth of the Osage people by having Ernest marry one of the daughters, Molly, played by Lily Gladstone, and then they maniacally scheme to have all of her family killed off so that they're the ones that get to inherit all the wealth. What a dirty and disgusting thing humans have done, man. This movie does a great job of showing the best of humanity, of how it looks when people of all parts of tribes and communities come together and live in harmony, and shows the worst of humanity. This film is truly heartbreaking because it is a love story, and Lily Gladstone, who plays Molly, encaptures what love can do to somebody. Seeing her witness all of her siblings and family and beyond being murdered was horrifying, and it made me sick to my stomach. And it hurts even more because this actually happened. And you can see piece by piece was taking off her throughout the whole movie. And near the end of the movie, she almost looked like a shell of a human at that point. She had an idea what was going on, but it was her faith being blindsided by love that held her from seeing the truth. The man who she loves and sleeps with was the one who poisoned her and dissipated her entire family. What a hard thing to swallow. And Robert De Niro, who at this time of his life, where he's dabbling in the dark magic of atrophy, does he still have it in him? For a while, like in the mid-2000s to the 2010s, he was phoning in a lot of performances. But then he did The Irishman, and in my opinion, he should have won Best Actor, even though the Oscars don't mean shit anymore. But he still carried a 3.5 hour dramatic movie. Only a few can do that, and he is one of them. God, he can still act. In this movie, they showed how the First Nations described certain human elements through animal terms. Like if you were to do something evil, you are a snake. Or the term wolf in sheep's clothing, which is exactly who William Hale was. The Osage people loved him. He came across as lovable, a caring old man who showed compassion, helped out with the community. But in reality, it was all a facade, so he can get away with the plot he came up with to steal their wealth. And De Niro played both these parts so well. And they established this right at the beginning of the movie of who this character actually is and what's his motivation. And if they did it right, they could have kept that a secret and made it more of a murder mystery, and that could have been used as a giant big reveal twist that he was the one that committed all the mysterious murders. And it could have been very interesting if it was done that way, but honestly, I think it would have taken away from the realism and the sole focus of what this movie was about. So I'm glad we got what we did. And it wouldn't be a Scorsese movie. Leonardo DiCaprio carries this movie. They established this character of kind of being naive and easily manipulated. One thing I was confused in this movie is rather if he knew exactly what was happening. Like, this character came off as really dumb. One thing that was true, or maybe it was just for the movie that was true, is that he actually did love Molly. But then he was doing all of these horrible things, and you could see he loves her, and it was clear at the end of the movie with what he chose on where his heart laid. But it was a little too late, but I would have loved to see him maybe being a little bit more torn what was going on, and also see how pieces ripped out of him. He kind of was just a dumb pylon going on with his uncle's master plan. But at least we did get to see some internal conflict, and throughout the movie, you were hoping that he will come out clean. They do a really good job in this movie suffocating you of hiding the truth and seeing Molly going through all of this. I didn't read the book, and I for sure wasn't there in that time, and he very much could have been that way. I just think it would have made a much more interesting character. I also would have loved to see him interact and having a relationship with his children. They were there, but that's all they were. There. So if something were to happen to his kids, you just have to assume that he's a caring father, besides the fact that what he's doing is contradicting everything. Just a little bit of interaction with his kids would have been nice, considering you have 3.5 hours of real estate. This movie does a great job of showing you what greed does to you. When your sole focus is on money and how it eats at your soul and what the consequences of greed leads to. You're allowed to focus on money, but it needs to be balanced with other things that are important too. This film was shot in Oklahoma, where this story takes place, and what a beautiful place. Every sweeping shot, wide shot of showing the landscape makes me want to visit. Grasslands there are so beautiful, and it kept reminding me of Red Dead, which makes me want to play it again. In fact, I think Red Dead 3 should be set in this time. Imagine playing a Red Dead Western style game with first time automobiles. This film is another great example of old school filmmaking with acting and cinematography, but also being modern and keeping up with today's style. We are so lucky that we have a director like Scorcese still making movies today, because they don't make him like him anymore. Every movie feels the same now because all the studios are afraid to take risks anymore, so they get generic directors who only take orders, and then we get meh. Scorsese, with his caliber and clout, like a few others, has the freedom to still create and do things original, which is why we can get a movie like this the way it's done. And even the way the movie ends, it's not in the typical text fading in telling you what happens next. Scorsese ends it with a different way of informing you what happened next. And considering he's at the age where you can hear his joints squeak, he still can create. He's still an artist. It starts with Scorsese and ends with Scorsese. This was a passion project of his, and he finally got to do it. But man, I can see if you're First Nations and you watch this movie, I can't even imagine how you come out of it not feeling like absolute shit. Because I felt it. It definitely can be traumatizing. Not every movie is supposed to be uplifting and heartwarming, but it's a good reminder that we shouldn't rewrite history and pretend to make it fit in whatever political narrative that fits your bullshit agenda today. We need stories like this to learn from our past mistakes. It's a movie that I don't recommend to everyone because it is very heavy and real and also long. And for the most part, compared to Oppenheimer, which was 3 hours, it utilized its runtime quite efficiently. If anything, maybe the first act could have been a little tighter, but once it gets going, it sucks you in. Whereas Oppenheimer, 30 minutes shorter, felt like it dragged. Great cinematography, great production. It looked like we were in the 20s, with absolute great performances, as close as a masterpiece this movie can get to. Go watch this movie. Support these types of films, because we might not be getting movies like this anymore. But if you do, don't drink any liquids before the movie. Just a little tip. Alright, that's all I got. Please like and subscribe, and until my next one, ta-ta for now. Also, at the age where Scorsese is at right now, where he's at the brink of his deathbed, I don't know how he has the energy to make a movie like this.